can Christians use drugs? There's the can they and the should they. So I would go to 1 Corinthians 23, or 10:23 rather, where Paul said, all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. All things are lawful, but not all things edify.
Do you take that literally?
I'm sure.
So we're back, and we were just talking about how well we handled body image, a topic that we pulled from the magic jar of topics. This is the most magical jar, by the way. And we're going to cover another topic tonight about drugs. And there was a misinterpretation. We're not going to worry about it. We're just going to talk about drug abuse, illegal drugs and legal drugs that you abuse. Can Christians abuse those types of drugs? Can they smoke pot? Can they use heroin? Can they snort coke? And to just go down the list. But these guys have something to say about it. One thing, we are going to read your comments from the past shows in the next show. And we're not going to do it tonight, but I just want to thank you for writing them. Continue to write them. We want to hear criticisms. You can go ahead and speak your mind. This is on anything you want to say it. We will read it as long as it's not grossly profane, and we will try to address your concerns. But talking about Christians and drugs, Steve?
Yes?
Let's just go to you.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
go to Steve first.
So I have a few things to say about the topic, and I think with that bucket of topics, I'm going to probably say the same thing on a lot of these, but this is a perfect one to start off with the point, and that is, as far as can Christians use drugs? There's the can they and the should they. So I would go to 1 Corinthians 23, or 10:23 rather, where Paul said, all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. All things are lawful, but not all things edify.
Do you take that literally? All things.
I'm saying it depends. That's where I'm going with this.
There's a context.
It depends. There was a context. He was talking about meat, eating meat, and what was it? Eating meat that was
sacrifice to idols.
Yeah, sacrifice to idols, right? So, as far as can we? I think we can. I would start with, is it legal? First of all, like legal as in the law, because if it is, then okay, that makes it a little easier to justify. Can we? And then should we? Does it? Is it expedient? Is it something that builds up your life? That depends wholly on the situation,
okay,
and who you're with. And later in 1 Corinthians 10, he was talking about going to a dinner party, and if someone serves you meat, that was sacrificed to idols, don't worry for your own sake. Just eat it, basically. So there's some wiggle room, I think, as Christians that we have when it comes to drugs and alcohol and really anything. But the question is, should we? Now, for that, for everyone else, it can be different. It just depends on the situation, I think. But do we have freedom in Christ to do these things? I think absolutely yes.
Absolutely. Can we? Yes. Should we? That's up to the individual.
Yes. And can I say one more thing too?
Yes, say whatever you like.
It is up to the individual and the situation, because overall a good test for this, if you're trying to decide, okay, is it good for me to be doing this? Is it going to hurt you or others or your ability to love others? If it is, then no. Like there's people that get drunk that are just super mean and they, hit their wives and they start fights. In that case, if you that happens to you, absolutely not. You should not.
Right.
Because it's obvious that it's.
But who
not
makes that
anyway.
decision?
You.
Absolutely not. You should not.
Who makes the decision?
For that person who is a violent drunk. Who makes the decision for them? The pastor, the church, or the individual?
No, the individual.
Well, yeah.
I don't think the pastor should have any say in that.
Okay.
Maybe he can suggest, but I think it comes to the individual. And also, and some people maybe they're very happy and talkative and they want to share Jesus when they're drunk, which I've seen that firsthand. There's people that want to talk about religion like crazy when they're all drunk.
Yeah.
And that's like their favorite thing to do. And in that case, maybe it's not so bad. in that specific case. But as an overall, it just depends on the situation.
Okay.
Same with pot, same with, caffeine. The reason that can be good for a lot of reasons. Okay, let's say I'm going to meet with someone that needs my help or wants my advice on something relating to God, or they're having troubles in their life. I get out of bed, I'm super tired, and I just don't feel like I'm in a good mood. If I have a cup of coffee, maybe that helps me to be more ready for this meeting.
Nicotine?
Nicotine, sure, same thing. Same exact thing. Go ahead.
So during all that, I was trying to think of the best way to state my position, and I don't really have a set defined position because I'm more ignorant on this topic. I think where it becomes most important in this discussion is who are you putting your reliance in? What are you putting your reliance in? We could take alcohol, for example. If you become addicted, and every time you have a severe problem of some sort, you get drunk, and that is you putting your reliance and trying to drown your feelings and the problems of life in temporary satisfaction with alcohol. While when you should be talking to God and getting into His Word. So in a sense, that particular substance can be taken away from you building your relationship with Christ. So I think that's where the importance of it comes from, and not necessarily in the health aspect, although there is biblical verses on that. So can you be Christian and take mood-altering drugs? I think yes. It's not my place to say you can't. But should you? No, I don't think so. And it depends on the drug too. For example, I drink coffee every morning, and I know the Mormons aren't going to like that, but with caffeine, that's an addictive drug. But it all depends on how that affects you and your relationship with God and your relationship with others. That's
what I agree with all of them.
Yeah.
Honestly, now if it's drawing away from your relationship to God, then it's not expedient. So don't do it.
So your use of caffeine, to whatever use that is, you don't probably like the taste of caffeine itself, so it must serve some purpose in your life. Is that something that's supporting you where God should be doing it?
Well, I don't know. It gets me through school. Like, I wake up at 5, get my cup of coffee, and then
But that's the justification everyone makes for any drug. It gets me through the day. That's why I have so I mean, that's and your argument was you shouldn't do it because it's getting you through something that you should have God getting you through it.
Oh wait, no, Shawn, this isn't good. You're making me contradict myself.
Good. So go ahead.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think if you're relying on drugs to for your mood to be good or for your ability to just get through life, I think you should strongly look at that as a bad thing because obviously we want God to be the one that brings us this joy in life and this happiness. But the reason I brought up the dinner party example in the verse is because he was talking about if it's already there at the dinner party that you go to, just have it and don't worry about it. And now I'm using alcohol as an instance, so let's say everyone's at a dinner party and they have wine at the table set for everyone. Don't offend and make a big deal about it at the party. Just drink the wine, have a nice time, and don't worry about it with your relationship to God because it's going to cause more trouble than good.
There's liberty.
Yes, exactly. There's liberty to do that.
You're saying you're not going to offend God because what goes in the mouth does not defile a man. It's what comes out.
That was my second point.
So what you're suggesting is that it's better to just be polite and enjoy the wine, even if you're religion.
Unless you have a problem with it.
Unless you're an alcoholic.
If you're an alcoholic,
and
don't
you're
do
going to
that.
go home or you're going to drive or something irresponsible.
Yeah, but as a general, thing that a lot of the religious people would say, no, not even one glass of wine.
Many would.
Yes.
Yeah, the Mormons would certainly, and many Seventh-day Adventists certainly.
Exactly.
No. The strong Baptists, no. In fact, what they would say is represent Jesus by turning down the wine, forgetting that was his first miracle.
Yeah.
And that it was alcoholic wine because it was the most, it was the strongest wine.
So it was the best.
the best wine.
For us.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? You have something to add to that?
No, I just like to restate my position. I'm trying to think of the most proper way to put it. I think that just using caffeine as an example, I do like the taste of coffee. I don't only drink it, get me through the day. It just helps a bit. It gives me a boost.
Right.
I can make it just fine without it. I think in the specific sense, it's when it interferes with your relationship with God and like the stability of if you're a parent with your family or with your friends and how you promote the gospel. I think that's where the importance of it, or if it just completely destroys your health, I think that's where the issues start to come by with drugs.
It's like anything, like the people that say no alcohol ever versus the people that say, okay, I can have some once in a while. I think there's a reasonable position to have with these things. Yeah, with heroin, probably not.
Yeah.
but I think these things are lawful in the eyes of God, and it's what we do with them. We're responsible for our actions and how it affects our life. So if we're the ones that are, acting crazy and still doing crack or something, then that's on us. And that's what we need to, pray for help from God to help us get over that.
So what about a believer who is addicted to a substance? Are they as good of a Christian as you if you're not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of us have our struggles. I mean, some people it may be alcohol, others it may be something else. I mean, we have no right to judge. We say, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to support you. I can give you advice if you want it, but it's your life, and that's between you and God. And how you
So
approach
being
it.
an alcoholic has nothing to do with being a Christian.
No.
No, it can make your Christian life harder.
Definitely.
So it's not, that goes back to what you were saying, it's not necessarily a good thing, especially when you're reliant on a substance like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're doing it once in a while for whatever reason, there's plenty of reasons that people drink, smoke, do whatever. But if you're addicted to it and it's destroying your life, then it's a pretty clear sign that you shouldn't be doing that, and I'm sure it's making your walk with God much harder. It could also build faith in the end because, you're relying on God to help you out.
Because you're so destroyed.
Yeah, so there could be arguments in all these ways. So it's up to you.
I think what a lot of people fear, and especially with Ethan here, he's 16, but is that, it's good advice. Your brain isn't even done cooking, in my estimation, until you're in your 20s.
Yeah, 25, I think. It is,
Yeah,
around
so
there.
it's good advice not to get involved with any substance.
Of course.
And to be who are children.
Absolutely.
And so people bring that into religion, and they try, and one of the key things we're trying to do is to show what Christianity is and what it's not.
Yeah.
And it is not a set of what some people think if you smoke cigarettes, you can't be a good Christian. And I used to think that. You are not a good Christian if you smoke cigarettes.
I used to think it too.
And I've come to see that some people who smoke cigarettes who are Christians are some of the most devout Christians I've ever met from the heart. So we so want to categorize people. I don't smoke cigarettes. I can't stand them, right? But nevertheless, we have to try to see that as a Christian, it's the faith and the reliance upon Christ. What about the slippery slope of making rules or even strong suggestions? Well, you shouldn't do that. Because once you start suggesting that someone shouldn't take heroin or someone shouldn't smoke pot and they shouldn't drink alcohol, they shouldn't use tobacco, they shouldn't eat fried food.
You're creating soft laws. Which
Yeah.
are still laws, but they're just skirting the issue.
So do they have a place in the faith? Soft laws.
I don't think so. I think as humans and as friends, as family, we can obviously make suggestions
Sure.
for our loved ones and for people around us, certainly.
Yeah.
But when we bring it into religion and our Christian lives and saying, as a Christian, I'm asking you to not smoke.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
I hate it. And I used to do it to my best friend. My best friend smoked, and I wouldn't let him get in my car.
Wow.
I was going to leave him.
Because he
smoking.
smelled or because...
Because he was smoking, and I couldn't handle it.
Isn't that funny?
I was so upset, and
Yeah.
I was such an idiot.
Yeah.
So I know there's other idiots like me out there, and
Yeah.
I'm just trying to spare you the embarrassment later. Please don't do that to people because. It
And
doesn't
yet there's
help
grown adults who've been raised in religion who maintain those attitudes toward people.
I hate it, and I hate it because I saw it in myself, and I wish I hadn't.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it all has to do with how you were raised to perceive people like that. It's like you look down on people who aren't as holy as you, who don't follow the rules as good as you. In terms of how it affects Christian lives, we have to trust God to change someone's behavior. And again, you can stand up there and say as a pastor and say that it's good advice not to smoke. I mean, obviously that's good advice. It can give you lung cancer in the
Science
future.
is pretty much out on that one.
Well, yeah. And that's good advice, but
Why would a pastor approach the subject of smoking in the first place?
That's a good point, but if it's something affecting the lives of your members, I think it's something to at least
But
address.
deep fried tacos affect the lives of your members too. Why do we think there's certain things that we need to speak to as pastors?
This is what I would always say too, because I owned a vape shop for a while back in Minnesota, and I know.
Yeah, he told me this the other day.
I owned
That
a vape
surprised
shop.
me.
I know,
We're
I'm
done.
a heathen. But it's funny because some of my Christian friends, when I was this judgy idiot, some of my friends would come into the shop and buy stuff, and
Wow.
it was just funny. But anytime I would have like an energy drink, or someone would be drinking an energy drink and telling me that vaping's bad, I'm like, look what you're drinking.
Yeah.
And they'd, from a Christian standpoint or whatever, there's Christians that'll drink these terrible eat food and drink terrible energy drinks that are just destroying you, and not thinking anything of it. But then if you're vaping or anything really, then it's the devil.
Yeah.
So I just think that's kind of silly. There's plenty of things that we do that harm our bodies, and it's in the end of the day, it's up to you what you put in your body, and go to a health expert, not a pastor for that advice.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
and that's what I'm saying. It has to do with how you're raised, because if your parents and your church tell you that this is bad and this other stuff is okay, then you're going to go out and say that. I have a friend that he knows I drink coffee, right? I'll talk about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm drinking a nice cup of coffee today. And he's like, oh, coffee's going to give you cancer, Ethan. I'm like, dude, you eat McDonald's, man. And like, I think that's a whole $2 bucket of cancer. Like, I mean, how are you going to judge me for that when coffee's a lot better than McDonald's?
Right.
And it's just stuff like that. But he doesn't realize that because that's how we was raised to think. Some things are good because the Doctrine and Covenants, or one of their Mormon books, says this, and this is bad. Then it has to be bad, and you can't think anything.
I get
contradictory
that with people being raised that way, Muslims and Mormons and others. But we're trying to articulate what the Christian faith is.
Yeah.
And we are trying to dispel what it is not. And I would just ardently suggest it is not any sort of edict that determines what a person takes into their body, even if it's heroin. Because if the person comes to the pastor and says, well, I'm on meth, and you say, are you okay? Well, I want to get off it. Okay, well, let's just work with that. But
not you have to get off it now. You're
No.
going to hell. But what's the best case scenario? You judge them in a terrible way and make them want to do it in shame, and then go away from you. You're never going to see them again.
my pastor made me feel bad.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's destructive. The only time somebody's going to change, like whether it's smoking or drinking or any of these drugs, is they have to decide themselves that they want to do it. So having it come from a pastor and then adding the religious guilt into it, I don't think that's going to help anybody.
Okay, so just imagine the scenario.
But I'm no expert on this.
You're a church over here. You have 500, 1,000 congregates. The youth get together. They're all 18, 19, 20, whatever, and they all smoke pot. What will the pastor do? And it's legal. They're in California. Let's make that stipulation. Okay. They're in California where it's legal, and they all smoke pot together, and they're Christians. The standard response from the congregates and the pastor will be what?
Here's what the pastor should do. Say whatever message he was going to say before he found out they were smoking pot.
Yeah.
And what the kids are going to do, well, I don't know. I'm not them. But if it's not legal, then probably don't do it. But as far as what the pastor should say to them, spread Jesus.
What will the church congregates say about the kids who got together and they smoke pot? What will be the general attitude?
They'll rain fire and fury.
They'll rain fire and fury.
Yeah, what do they say is different from what they should say.
Yeah, not what should they say, what will they say. But this is why Christianity has a wrong impression in the world, is because we think it's about you don't do this, you don't do that. And it's not. It's about faith in Christ.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
and
what
you guys agree.
People seriously need to get this through their heads. I mean, when it comes to anything like that, just preach the word and get people to understand the concepts of their faith and their love, and not get into all these rules, because it doesn't help anybody with what you want to help them with anyways.
Yeah.
But again, my point is that it's raised as a perceived image that any Christian would say, yeah, it's faith in Christ. Most Christians would, but they don't actually believe that.
No, they don't.
And I don't even think they realize it though,
Yeah.
because they've been raised to see this weird convoluted message of what Christ is.
How is it that us three lunatics get it?
I'm wearing a shirt that says beer on it, so I wore that specifically for this episode. So I don't know. My family members are experts on substances. I'm not. I just wear the shirt that says beer on it, and they actually help people. But
So how are we doing on time?
It's about time.
Okay, so let's summarize our thoughts. Be my guest, Steve.
all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. Can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? Maybe.
I think just trust God. I personally wouldn't recommend you do drugs. Scientifically, it's not really good for you, but
Why do you have to include that? I want to know.
because it's not. That's factual.
But we're talking about Christ and Christianity and helping people understand that.
You said this was my summary.
All right.
I can say what I want.
Yeah, what are you?
I have to ask why. Anyone knows that eating a McDonald's cheeseburger and shooting heroin and drinking to excess is not good for you. We get that. Go ahead. You can't help it. You have to say it.
Ignore all that. Yeah, just listen to me. It's not good for you. That should be in a commercial. I've lost my train of thought. I'm done.
I'm trying to unroot you.
I know. They know what I was gonna say, so that
Saboteur.
counts. Just trust God in everything. And yeah, that's all I can say at this point.
I'd like to add that I ate 2 cheeseburgers in the parking lot and vaped in the parking lot before I got in here. So
Oh Lord.
I
There
would
goes
add-
the comments.
I would add
I'm practicing what I'm preaching here.
I would add 2 thoughts. One has not been brought up, the other one has. The first thought is that if your action will stumble another person,
That's important.
is that it should be refrained from a gospel perspective, because that is the
their
definition of
sake.
love, is that you don't do something in the presence of others that may stumble. That's why I don't drink alcohol publicly here. I drink alcohol once a week. Once a week I drink alcohol, but it is never in public, because someone sees me from the show and says, look at McCraney, and you down. So I think that's really important to the conversation about being a Christian.
That's at the end of Paul's dinner
The only
party story.
clean
If a
man
Christian
here.
comes to you and says, hey, that stuff is sacrificed to idols, don't eat that, then you don't eat it.
That's
For
right.
for their sake.
For their sake. And that brings me to the second point, is that anything we do as Christians is going to be for the sake of others. So I believe that a pastor can teach if there's something in your life that you are doing that is detrimental to the life of others. And that means if you're getting drunk and your family is suffering and you're not going to work, but I wouldn't articulate it that way. I would just suggest anything that will harm another, and that probably will include yourself, because you're another to God.
Yeah.
That if it
And
will,
your ability to help others.
that's
is
right, and your
important
ability.
too.
So you have to couch it, I think, in that way, rather than this is bad and you don't do it as a Christian.
Yes.
We agree?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Whose turn? This is for
Steve's.
this is
It's
for
Steve's.
next week's show. Steve's turn.
To make my hand
Steve
really
has
small
a very
to fit
bad
into this
record of
thing.
this. Don't look.
I swear, if
It
it's a
doesn't
bad one,
matter if
Steve,
I
I'm
look.
gonna get you.
Okay, here. I think there's 2. Here we go. Oh boy. Does God respect some people? Does God respect some people more than others? What does that say?
That is the most complicated thing I've heard.
I was trying to figure out how it was
Does
written.
God / respect
Okay.
some
Oh,
people
that's
more
important.
than others?
I see.
Does God / respect some people more than others. That will be our conversation next week. Ready?
Yeah.
Out!
Got it.